Okay, it's 5 o'clock on a Saturday morning. My dad and I just got up and are getting ready to go abalone diving. Waking up this early on the weekend is a must because where we dive is a 2.5 hour drive from my house to the ocean. I started diving when I was 12 with my dad, and I've done it ever since. Today, I'm going to talk about where you can legally harvest for red abalone in California, how to stay safe, the gear you need, and how to pry them off the bottom of the ocean. You can legally harvest 3 abalone per day in the state of California from San Francisco to the Oregon border, so from right here all the way up. Anywhere south or north of that zone is illegal, and unfortunately poaching is a big issue for red abalone. Pamela Turner's article, Too Tasty to Survive, The Fight to Save California's Last Abalone, published in 2003, states that poachers can get $50 to $100 a pound for the abalone, making it a huge incentive because each abalone ranges from 2 to 5 pounds. So if you can get 10 abalone in one day, you're easily making over $1,000 on the black market. The red abalone native to Northern California are the largest species in the world. Robert Leaf, author of Biology of Red Abalone, published in 2005, talks about how red abalone can live up to 50 years and grow upwards of a foot from one end of the shell to the other, lengthwise. Now that you know what abalone are and where you can legally harvest them, you now need the right gear. Unfortunately for abalone diving, you need a lot of gear. You need a full body wetsuit, fins, snorkel, a dive iron, which is the abalone iron used to pry them off the rock. You need your tube, weight belt, fins, snorkel, and on top of this, you also need an abalone license separate to your fishing one and your abalone tags. All that gear is incredibly heavy, hiking down to the ocean, so it makes the stay very long. Once you have all your gear, the next step and most important is to make sure it's a safe day to go diving. The ocean can be very dangerous, and too often people die trying to dive for abalone. On the left, you have dangerous conditions where you can see the swell is large, it's crashing into the rocks, and this is exactly what a bad day would look like for abalone diving, because to dive for abalone, you're close to the shore, close to the rocks where they live, so you can easily get smashed against the rocks, get knocked out, drown. So that's why before you go abalone diving, make sure you check the swells and tides so that it is not a day on the left and it is a day on the right where it's nice and calm, you're able to swim around and not worried about being smashed against the rocks. Brian Tissot, author of The World's Deadliest Snail, California Red Abalone, published in May of 2015, that in the past 20 years, more than 60 people have died abalone diving. And every year, more and more people die because they try to go in those conditions instead of waiting and being patient for calm conditions. My dad always told me growing up, your life is not worth a snail. Now that you know what a good day looks like and what a bad day looks like and how to check it out, all you need to do now is get all your gear, drive to wherever you're going to dive, walk down to the ocean, and start diving. As you walk down, you're carrying at least 40 pounds of gear because your weight belt is about 1/10 of your size, so depending on that, plus your full wetsuit, all the other gear you need. Carrying it down, you get down to the water, have to put it all on, and if anyone has ever put on a wetsuit or other gear, it's not easy, especially if it's tight on you. And once you do that, all you need to do is just get into the water and start searching around. Putting on all the gear is exhausting, and then you jump into the cold water, you get the nice, pleasant 54-degree Pacific Ocean to wake you up a little bit, get your heart rate going. And now, what you have to do is start searching around. And if the visibility is good enough, like here, where you can see pretty well, you're able to spot abalone from the surface while you're just up on there, making it much easier and more effective to dive down and use less attempts and breath. However, if it's poor, you might only be able to see a foot to 3 feet in front of you, so you have to dive down to the bottom before you can even look around, so it takes much longer and more breath and less effective. You can legally take 3 abalone per day. They have to be over 7 inches from the length, the two ends. And once you find one in the accessible spot, like these 2 right here, you just take your abalone iron and quickly slide underneath and pop them off. If you do not get an effective slide underneath, the abalone will suction to the rock and make it near impossible to pry it off. The abalone season, unfortunately, has been closed for the past 2 years because of a die-off, but Fish and Game has speculated that it will reopen next year. And now that all you guys know what gear you need, how to stay safe, and where you can legally harvest abalone, if you're ever in Northern California during the season, when it reopens, I encourage you to rent some gear and go and try it out. Yes, it requires waking up early, carrying a bunch of gear down to the ocean, putting it on, jumping into the freezing water, and swimming around. But at the end of the day, having abalone for dinner is completely worth it. Thank you.